The galactic royal court of the Alari people was full of gold lights, floating banners, and soft music played by living crystal instruments. Nobles in long flowing robes stood tall, their skin shining with soft colors like pearls. They talked, quietly sipping glowing drinks and looking at the new guest who had just walked into the room. He looked out of place. His name was Derek. He was a human warrior sent to represent Earth in the royal gathering. He was dressed in simple armor, not shiny like the Alari's clothing. His brown boots were dusty from travel, and his face looked tired but calm. Some Alari nobles whispered to each other and smiled with mocking eyes. Derek walked with quiet steps and bowed deeply to Queen Alaria, who sat on the high throne made of starlight stone. The queen looked down at him with a straight face, her hands resting gently on her lap. She gave a small nod. One voice suddenly broke the silence. "This is the great human warrior." It was Larissa, the young princess of the Alari. She stood with her arms crossed, tall and proud. Her long silver-blue hair flowed down her back, and her green eyes sparkled with amusement. "He looks like a rust-colored pebble." A few nobles laughed. Derek didn't react. He stayed silent, letting the insult fall to the ground like dust. He only nodded to Larissa with respect. "I may not shine like starlight," Derek said softly, "but even small stones can stand firm in storms." The queen's eyes twitched for a moment. It was so small that no one noticed, except maybe one old court advisor. The queen said nothing. The court moved on. Other ambassadors gave gifts, shared long greetings, and made empty promises. Derek gave a box made of old earth wood, and inside it was a simple carving of a human and an Alari shaking hands. It was not shiny, not advanced, but it felt honest. It felt real. Some nobles frowned. Others looked bored. Larissa rolled her eyes. After the event ended, Derek stepped out into the wide palace garden. The twin moons of the Alari world shined softly above. Flowers opened under the night sky and glowing insects danced like stars. Derek stood near a still pond, quiet and thoughtful. "You really think a wooden carving will impress my people?" Larissa's voice came from behind. Derek turned. Larissa was standing there, arms folded again, watching him. "I did not come to impress," Derek said. "I came to offer peace." She walked closer. "You act calm for someone so simple. Are all humans like you?" "Slow and serious?" "Not all," Derek said. "But war teaches you to listen before speaking." Larissa raised an eyebrow. "Then speak with action. Fight me." Derek blinked. "You want to fight? With training staffs?" she said, pulling 2 thin energy rods from her belt and tossing one to him. "Show me what kind of warrior you really are." Derek caught the staff. He didn't want to fight, but something told him this was more than pride. She wanted to see if he was worth anything. They stood in a small training ring near the garden wall. 2 guards watched silently. Larissa moved first, fast like wind. Her staff came at him from the left. Derek blocked it without stepping back. She spun and struck again from the right. Again, he blocked it. Then she aimed at his knees. He stepped aside and tapped her shoulder gently. "Point," he said. She stared at him, surprised, then tried again, this time faster. Her strikes were smooth, trained, beautiful. But Derek had fought in real battles, not games. He didn't use fancy moves. He stayed grounded, calm, patient. After 10 rounds, he had scored 8 points. She had won. She was breathing hard. He wasn't. "You are better than you look," she said, frowning. "And you are strong," Derek replied. Offering her a hand, she looked at it for a long second before taking it. Behind a curtain of leaves, Queen Ilaria stood in silence. She had watched the whole thing. Her hands were folded, but her nails pressed into her palms. Her eyes, once calm and distant, now held a storm. 20 years ago, she had hidden among humans during a war mission. She had fallen into danger, wounded and afraid, hiding in the rubble of a falling building. And then a young human soldier had appeared, dirty, bleeding, and fierce. He had fought off her attackers, carried her through fire, and protected her even without knowing who she really was. His name had been Derek. She had left without saying goodbye, hiding the truth even from herself. But now here he stood, older, stronger, but still the same eyes. She touched the edge of a tree, steadying herself. Larissa, her daughter, had just fought him without knowing the truth. The queen whispered under her breath, "This should not be possible." But it was. The sun rose slowly over the crystal towers of the Alari capital, casting long blue shadows across the palace grounds. In the quiet of early morning, Larissa walked through the royal garden alone. Her hair was tied back, and she still held the practice staff in her hand. She had barely slept. Her mind was full of questions. She had fought the human, and he had defeated her. It didn't make sense. She had trained with the best Ellery masters since childhood. No outsider, especially not a human, should have been able to block her so easily. Yet Derek had done it tanned with calm eyes, without showing off, without mocking her like others might have. As she stood near the flower beds, a memory returned, something her mother once said long ago when she was just a girl. There are warriors who fight for pride, and there are warriors who fight because they must. Fear the second kind. Back then, she didn't understand it. Now, maybe she was starting to. Not far away, Derek stood on a training field behind the guest quarters. He practiced alone, moving through slow fighting forms, his steps solid, his grip steady. The guards nearby watched him quietly, no longer with scorn, but with quiet curiosity. His movements were not flashy, but they carried weight like he had done them 1,000 times. Not for show, but for survival. From the palace window, Queen Ilaria watched both of them. Her fingers trembled slightly as she held a small pendant in her hand. It was shaped like a star, split down the center, a human design, a gift. Long ago, from him, she closed her eyes and remembered 20 years ago. She had been in hiding. She had worn plain clothes. No crown, no guards. The mission was simple: observe human life and report back to the council. She had been caught in a rebel attack. Fire had rained down. Buildings had crumbled. Her leg was broken. And then a soldier, a young human named Derek, had found her in the ruins. He hadn't asked who she was. He just lifted her, shielded her with his body, and got her out alive. They spent 3 nights in a cave before help came. Those short days they had talked, laughed, and shared stories. She had told him her name was Arya. He never knew she was royalty. She had returned to Ellery's space with a secret inside her, and now that secret stood in the garden, challenging her own daughter without even knowing why it mattered so much. Elleria closed her hand around the pendant and whispered, "They deserve the truth." But how? Later that day, Larissa approached Derek on the training field. "You fight like someone who's seen war," she said. Derek looked up and nodded. "Many wars, not all of them had winners." She sat on a nearby bench, her staff across her knees. "You said yesterday that war teaches you to listen. What else does it teach?" Derek walked over and sat beside her, though leaving a respectful distance. "It teaches patience. Not every battle needs a weapon. Sometimes silence wins." She studied him. His face had lines now, but not from weakness, from experience. His eyes were steady, like the deep waters of the ice lakes. She didn't want to admit it, but she liked talking to him. "Why did you come here?" she asked. "To build peace," he said. "To keep a promise." She blinked. "A promise?" He nodded but didn't explain. She didn't press him suddenly. A royal messenger ran into the field. "Princess Larissa, Queen Alara, summons you both. At once, the matter is private." They exchanged looks. Larissa stood confused. Derek stood calmly when they entered the queen's private chamber. The guards were dismissed, and the doors sealed behind them. The air felt heavy. Queen Ilaria stood by the wide window, her hands behind her back. "You both are wondering," she said, "why I brought you here?" Larissa nodded. "Yes, mother." Derek said nothing, but his eyes narrowed slightly. He felt something important was coming. The queen turned slowly. For a moment, her mask of control broke. She looked at Derek not as a ruler, but as a woman filled with emotion. "Do you remember the colony world called Haven 7? she asked. Derek blinked. Yes, I served there, 20 years ago. You saved someone there, she said. A woman trapped during a raid? You called her Arya? He stared at her. Slowly, realization dawned in his eyes. That was you? Yes. Larissa looked from one to the other, confused. What are you talking about? The queen walked forward, her voice softer now. Derek saved me, not knowing who I was. He cared for me, protected me. And when I returned, I carried more than memories. She reached out and gently touched Larissa's cheek. I carried you. Larissa froze. The queen looked at Derek, tears forming in her eyes. You are her father. Derek's mouth opened slightly, took a step back, his heart pounding. Larissa stepped away, her voice shaking. What? That's not possible? Isalaria said gently. I kept it secret. For your safety. For the kingdom, I told no one, not even him. Larissa stared at Derek, her thoughts spinning. She remembered how she mocked him, how she challenged him, and now this. Derek looked at her, eyes full of surprise and sorrow. I never knew, he said. If I had. Larissa backed away. No, I need time. She turned and walked out of the chamber, her head down. Derek stayed behind, still trying to breathe. The queen whispered, I am sorry, Derek. But the truth had to be told. Larissa didn't speak to anyone for the next 2 days. She stayed in her training chamber, practicing alone. The walls echoed with the sharp sounds of staff strikes and heavy breathing. Her moves were faster than before, but her mind was cloudy. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Derek's face. The man she had mocked was her father. It didn't feel real. She tried to focus. She told herself to forget, to move on. But her thoughts wouldn't listen. Her heart was a storm of emotions, anger, shame, confusion, and something else she couldn't name. Outside her door, the palace was not calm either. A message had come from the edge of Alari space. One of their science ships had gone missing near a gravity rift. That area was dangerous. Ships that entered often never returned. But this one carried Alari scientists and important research. It had to be rescued. Queen Ilaria called a meeting in the war room. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were tired. This is no small matter, she said. If we lose those mines, our future weakens. The court commander suggested sending a fleet. Others feared the risk. The gravity rift was unstable. Larissa entered the chamber late, her armor dusty and her hair tied tight. Everyone turned to her. I will lead the mission, she said firmly. There was silence. Princess, one of the generals said, you are brave. But the rift? I've trained for this, Larissa interrupted. And those are our people. Out there, Queen Ilaria looked at her daughter with a mix of pride and worry. Then she said something unexpected. You will go, but Derek will go with you. The room stirred with whispers. Larissa blinked in shock. She wanted to protest, but then closed her mouth. Derek, who had stood silently in the back, stepped forward. I will follow your orders, Your Majesty. Larissa avoided his eyes. Soon after, a small rescue team was gathered. They boarded a strong but light ship built for fast travel. As it launched into space, Larissa and Derek sat at opposite ends of the control deck. The other crew members watched the strange tension between them. After hours of silence, the ship reached the edge of the gravity rift. It looked like space itself was folding inward. Bright waves of light bent around black clouds. Signals from the missing science ship were weak, but still alive. The pilot was nervous. If we go in too far, we might not come back. We don't need to go deep, Derek said. Just close enough to send a signal and pull them out. Larissa nodded, finally speaking. But we'll need a plan, and fast. Gravity spikes can crush us in seconds. Derek moved to the screen. I studied this kind of field before on a human mission. We can use the asteroid path here as cover. If timed right, we can ride the gravity flow instead of fighting it. The Alari crew looked surprised. Humans know about this? One asked. We don't just fight, Derek said. We learn. Larissa looked at him. Not with anger this time, but with something closer to curiosity. She nodded slowly. All right, we follow his plan. The ship entered the rift. Pressure rose. Alarms beeped.
Oh.
The lights flickered, but Derek's instructions worked. They moved. Between floating rocks and plasma streams, every time a wave came, they leaned with it instead of resisting. Finally, he saw the missing science ship damaged but intact, caught in a weak field. They're alive, the pilot said. Lock. On, Larissa ordered. Suddenly a new gravity wave formed stronger than expected. It pulled both ships deeper into the rift. We're losing control, someone shouted. Cut the rear engines and angle left, Derek said calmly. Trust me. The pilot hesitated, then obeyed. The ship tilted hard. Larissa held on as the gravity pulled at her bones. Then, slowly, the drag lessened. The screen showed open space ahead. They were free. Cheers broke out. The science ship, now tethered to them, sent a signal of thanks. Once the danger passed, Larissa walked over to Derek. For the first time, she looked directly at him, truly looked. You saved them, she said. We saved them, Derek replied. She sat down next to him. The silence between them was no longer heavy. You said you were keeping a promise, she said softly. Yes, Derek nodded. I told someone long ago I'd protect what matters, even if I didn't know what that was yet. Larissa looked down at her hands. I was cruel to you. I didn't know why you felt familiar. Now I understand. I never expected this, Derek said. But I want to make things right, if you'll let me. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed on the stars outside the window. Then she whispered, I don't know if I'm ready to call you father. I understand, he said quietly. But I think I want to learn who you are. Derek gave a small smile. Not of victory, but of hope. For the first time since she learned the truth, Larissa felt the storm inside her begin to calm. Maybe not fully, not yet, but it was a start. After the rescue mission, the two ships returned to Ellery space. The science crew was safe, the data was secured, and the palace was preparing for their welcome. Queen Ilaria ordered a quiet celebration, but her heart was heavy with thoughts. She knew something had shifted between Larissa and Derek Hand. The time for hiding had truly ended. Inside her private chamber, Larissa stood near a tall mirror. Her hands touched the old pendant hanging around her neck. She had worn it every day since the day she left Earth, hidden under her royal robes. The shape of the broken star still held meaning, was a symbol of a promise unspoken. A knock came. At her door, enter, she said. It was Derek. He stepped in slowly, closing the door behind him. His steps were firm, but his face showed hesitation. They hadn't spoken alone since the truth was revealed. Your Majesty, he began. Call me Ilaria, she said softly. He paused, then nodded. Ilaria, we need to talk. Said we do. He looked at her carefully. You should have told me. About her, about everything. Ilaria sighed. I know. But I wanted to. But when I returned to my people, the council controlled everything. They told me to forget, to focus on my duties, and I was afraid. Afraid of what? That if I reached out, she whispered, they would take her away, or take you. I chose silence, and I've lived with that choice ever since. Derek looked away for a moment. I would have been there. For her. For both of you. Believe you, she said. There was silence between them, but it was not cold. It was the silence of two people standing at the edge of something old and unfinished. Ilaria stepped closer. You're not just a warrior, Derek. You're more than. They ever saw more than I allowed myself to remember. He gave her a small smile. And you're still the woman who risked everything to save a stranger? She blinked, surprised. You remember that? How could I forget? He said. You were bleeding, broken, and you still dragged me out of that fire, Hilarious. Eyes softened, we saved each other. And now our daughter is stronger than both of us, Derek said. They both smiled. Meanwhile, Larissa walked through the lower halls of the palace, her mind still full of questions. Her heart was no longer full of anger, but confusion remained. She remembered every word she had spoken to Derek, every joke, every insult, and yet he never responded with hate, never raised his voice, only patience, only calm strength. She entered the Royal Archives, a quiet place filled with history. Glowing panels floated in the air, each holding knowledge from centuries past. She searched the human files, curious now. She had never cared before. She saw pictures of human warriors, their messy weapons, their chaotic tactics. But she also saw stories of sacrifice, of bravery, of parents holding children during war. She saw one record that made her pause. A mission log from Haven 7. It was short, almost forgotten. It listed a human soldier who pulled 3 civilians from a collapsed tower. No reward, no rank gained, only a small note, completed with honor. The name was Derek. Larissa touched the panel gently. You weren't trying to impress anyone, she whispered. You just did the right thing. Suddenly, footsteps echoed. Behind her was the Queen. You found it, Ilaria said. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Larissa asked, turning. I was trying to protect you, the Queen said, but the truth can't be locked away forever. He's different from what we were taught, Larissa said.
Nice.
I thought humans were wild, loud, reckless.
But he's
not like that. He's still human, Ilaria replied. He's just the kind they never expected. Larissa looked down. I made fun of him. I didn't know who he was. I feel ashamed. The Queen asked gently. Larissa nodded. Then face it, Ilaria said. Face him. Back in the courtyard, Derek was preparing to leave. His mission was over, and staying longer might only bring more trouble. But deep down, he didn't want to go not yet. He stood near the transport platform watching the sky. You're leaving? Larissa's voice came from behind. He turned. She walked toward him, her armor gone, wearing a simple royal tunic. Her expression was serious. I thought it would be easier, Derek said, but it's not. And don't leave, she said. He raised an eyebrow. You want me to stay? She took a deep breath. I don't know what to call you yet. Not father. Not now, but you. You're not just a warrior. You're not just a visitor. You're part of something here. Part of me. His voice was quiet. I'm not asking you to forgive everything. I just want the chance to know you. Larissa looked into his eyes. She saw no demand, no anger, only hope. Then stay, she said. But you'll have to train with me again. This time I won't. Go easy, he chuckled. Deal. From the palace window, Ilaria watched them. Her heart finally felt lighter. The past had not vanished, but it had become part of something new. Derek didn't unpack his bags, kept them neatly stacked by the wall of his guest room. He didn't want to assume anything. Larissa had asked him to stay, but he knew things could change. Her words had been honest, but heavy. She was still thinking, still deciding. But she came back the next day. Training field, she said, standing in the doorway with 2 staffs in her hands. He followed her without a word. They met on the same grassy ground where they had first sparred. This time, there were no guards watching, no court nobles whispering. Only the soft wind and the distant hum of palace towers. They stood apart, facing each other. Larissa spun her staff once and got into a ready stance. No holding back today, she said. I wouldn't dare, Derek replied. She struck first, quick and low. Derek blocked it and stepped aside. She circled, changing rhythm. This time, he pushed forward with his own strike, testing her defense. The match went on for 20 minutes. It was balanced, neither side dominating. Larissa moved with grace and speed. Derek moved with strength and control. Then she stepped back, breathing hard. You're better than I remembered, she said. You're not bad yourself, Derek answered, with a small smile. They sat on the edge of the platform. Legs stretched out, staffs resting beside them. For a while, they just sat in silence. Can I ask something? Larissa said quietly, anything. What was Earth like when you were young? Derek looked at the sky for a moment, loud, crowded, but beautiful in its own way. There was a lake near my house. Used to sit there alone, watching the birds. I didn't have much, but it was peaceful. Did you ever think one day you'd be standing in an alien palace, talking to your daughter? He gave a quiet laugh. Never. She looked at him. And when you saved my mother, did you love her? He grew quiet. I don't know if it was love. Maybe it was, but it was real. She was brave, even when scared. Strong, even when hurt. We shared something, and then it was gone. Larissa nodded. She doesn't show feelings often, I know, Derek said, but she feels them. Deep inside. They stood up again and walked slowly back toward the palace. As they walked, Derek asked, What? Do you want to do, Larissa? I mean, beyond royal duties? She thought for a moment. I want to lead my people, but not just from the throne. I want to fight beside them, be the kind of leader who earns respect. You already are, Derek said. She smiled a little. Thank you. Later that night, Larissa visited her mother. Queen Ilaria was sitting alone in the sky chamber, looking through the clear dome at the stars. Mother, Larissa said softly, Alerya. Looked up, yes. Why did you fall for him? The queen smiled for the first time in many days because he didn't treat me like royalty. He didn't see a crown. He saw a person. When I was weak, he didn't pity me. He protected me. And he never asked for anything in return. Did you ever miss him? Larissa asked. Every single day, Ilaria replied. Larissa walked closer. Do you think he still feels the same? The queen looked down at her hands. I don't. No, maybe. But it's not about what we had. It's about what you two can have now. I want to know him, Larissa said. But I'm scared. What if I'm not what he hoped for? Ilaria stood up and took her daughter's hands. You are strong, Larissa. Brave. You are more than he could have ever imagined. The next morning, Derek stood near the shuttle platform again. He wasn't leaving, but he liked watching the ships rise and fall. The motion reminded him of old times. Larissa approached with a data scroll in her hand. What's that? He asked. Your new appointment? She said. Signed and sealed. By the royal court. He opened it. It read, Combat Instructor, Royal Academy of Alari Prime. Special Advisor to the Throne. Derek looked up. You did this? You earned it, she said. Does your mother approve? She's the one who suggested it, Larissa replied. She said it's time the next generation learns from someone who understands real war and real peace. Little stunned. Thank you. Classes start in 3 days, she said with a smirk. I expect you to be ready. I will be. As she walked away, he called after her. Larissa. She turned. I'm proud of you. She didn't say anything, but she smiled. In that smile, Derek saw something he had waited 20 years to see. Something real. 3 days later, the Royal Academy's training field buzzed with new energy. Young cadets in silver-blue uniforms stood in lines, their faces eager and curious. Some whispered among themselves, sneaking glances at the human standing in front. Of them, Derek, now wearing a plain black training suit with a simple emblem, looked over the group. His eyes moved calmly, studying each face. His voice when he spoke was firm but not loud. This is not about how fast you swing your staff, or how high you jump, he said. This is about control, discipline. Learning when not to fight matters just as much as knowing how to. The cadet stood a little straighter. From the upper walkway, Queen Ilaria watched with quiet pride. Beside her stood Larissa, her arms crossed but her expression relaxed. He has their attention, Larissa said. Yes, the queen replied, and he hasn't even raised his voice. The queen looked at her daughter. Have you spoken to him again? Privately? Larissa nodded a few times. He's not pushing me. He's letting me take my time. That's his way, Ilaria said. Quiet strength. As the training ended, Derek dismissed the cadets. One by one, they bowed and left the field. He stayed behind, gathering the training gear and placing it back in its case. That's when he saw Larissa approaching. She walked slowly, her face thoughtful. You did well, she said. They're eager to learn, Derek replied. That's a good start. She nodded, then stood beside him. For a few moments, they said nothing. Finally, Larissa broke the silence. I used to think humans were dangerous because they were unpredictable. loud, wild. But now I think your danger is something else. Derek looked at her. What do you mean? Your danger is calm, quiet, steady, like a storm that builds, slowly but never stops once it begins. He gave a small laugh. That's one way to put it. She looked up at him. You don't ask for anything. You don't expect anything. But you give so much. You've given too, Derek said. You opened your mind. That's not easy. She hesitated, then pulled something from her pocket. It was a small crystal charm, shaped like a circle with 2 stars, a symbol of family in a Lari tradition. This belonged to my grandmother, she said. She gave it to my mother when she was young. Now I want you to have it. Derek took the charm carefully, his eyes soft. Thank you. I'll keep it safe. It means I accept you, Larissa said. Maybe not fully yet, but this is my first step. He nodded slowly. That's more than enough. Later that evening, the royal hall glowed with soft light. There was no grand event, no big speech. Only a small private dinner with Queen Ilaria, Larissa, and Derek. 3 people who had once lived separate lives, now sitting at the same table. They ate quietly at first. The Queen broke the silence. Do you remember the cave? She asked Derek. He smiled. Of course, cold wind, broken rations, and that song you hummed while we waited for rescue. Larissa looked between them. You sang? No, Derek said, smiling wider. She did, a lullaby in your language. It was beautiful. Ilaria's cheeks turned slightly pink. I was scared. It helped me stay calm. You were brave, Derek said. We both were, she replied. Larissa listened, quiet and curious. She was seeing her mother in a new light, softer, more open. And Derek too, not just as a warrior, but as a man who carried memories gently. After dinner, they walked through the royal gardens, stars above them, the air cool and peaceful. Derek looked up. You have beautiful skies here, and now you're part of them, Larissa said. He turned to her. You really want me to stay? Yes, she said, as teacher, as friend, maybe someday, as father. His eyes became moist, though he didn't let the tears fall. Simply nodded, the weight in his chest slowly lifting. Thank you, he whispered, as they stood beneath the starlight. Queen Ilaria stepped forward and placed a hand on both of their shoulders. This was never about war or duty, she said. It was about healing, about finding what was lost. They stood there for a long time, not speaking. They didn't need to, in that quiet garden beneath the stars. Something old had finally been made whole. A warrior who had saved a stranger. A queen who had hidden a secret. A daughter who had laughed then learned the truth. And a family that had once been broken, now finding the strength to stand together.